All right, people. Hi, guys. Welcome to another book review. And today we're going to talk about Surrounded by a Psychopath by Thomas Erikson. Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Tanya, a consultant turned entrepreneur, and I spent 13 years in business. And on this channel, we're going to talk about all the things that I wish I knew. Please use the comment section to interact with me and follow and like for more. This is a book really close to my heart because I wish I would have read this book 10 years ago. It would have made my professional career so much easier. And let me tell you why. Do you work at a company right now, or in general in your life? Do you know this one person who always floats around, who knows everyone, but who you never see doing any work? Yeah. So that person is most probably a psychopath. And let me tell you why by explaining to you what this is about. So in this book review, we're going to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to introduce the DISC model to you. Then I'm going to talk to you about Thomas Erikson's motivation to actually write this book. The third part is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the real world applications in this book. And then fourth, I'm going to tell you about the style and what I personally think of it and what I've taken from it. All right, let's go. All right, people, I know there is 1,000,001 personality types and quizzes that you can do, but let's be honest. Do you actually remember all of them? And do you remember what you are? And do you also remember what everybody else is? Probably not. So let me guide your attention towards the DISC model. And the DISC model has been around since 1928. So a really long time. And the DISC model is so simple because it only consists of 4 different squares or 4 different personality types. And that makes it particularly easy because you know what you are and you can easily also see what everybody else is. And most people are multiple of these personality types. So you're a bit of this or a bit of that, and you're majority this or majority that. And it's commonly used at work, for example, in hiring and team constellations and leadership, etc., because it is so simple to remember and because it is also so pragmatic. Now, the D in DISC stands for dominant. And these are red personalities. And red personalities are, let's say, a little bit more of the aggressive type, okay? So they have a big ego, they are very direct, they get shit done, they are very competitive, and they like to be in control. They are also sometimes very shouty, so they might turn aggressive, but most of the times those people just get shit done. So they are go-getters. Then in the DISC model, we have the I, which stands for influence, which is the yellow personality. And this is your typical, I'm going to call it ADHD personality, super fun, super outgoing, super excited about everything. But in the end, it's really hard for them to follow through because they have so many tons of ideas and they are everywhere and anywhere. They are really great in transmitting ideas and in influencing people because their excitement is infectious. They have the S for steadiness, and this is your green personality. And this is more the person who likes to chill at home, who likes their 9 to 5, have like a really routine day, who likes to put on the TV in the evening, watch a movie, calm down, who you ask them to go out and to do stuff, and then they most probably think 3 times before they say yes. And they are also most likely to cancel plans at the end. And they're very, very, stable oriented. And then there is C, when C stands for conscientiousness. And this is best explained by your typical nerd. This is a person who is very detail oriented, who is very accurate, loves quality, and whose most important thing is to deliver the things as perfect as possible. They are the people who have very in-depth knowledge. They are not very social, and they don't usually interact with a lot of people. Like, I'm sure while explaining this to you, you can already think of so many people in your surroundings or at your work who fit into these different categories. And yes, some people are more yellow and red, and some people are more blue and green. So it really depends on what the main character is, but it's just very rare that actually people are just one specific color. And what you need to know about psychopaths is that basically they cannot feel empathy. So they mirror everything that you do. Psychopaths do feel emotions, sometimes even very strongly. But there's a big gap in their emotional world. Guilt, remorse, genuine empathy, deep lasting bonds, those feelings are either missing or barely there. Now, psychopaths are not born or specifically made. This is a combination of both. This is what the science community says about it. However, you need to know how to spot one and how to shield yourself against. What I really want you to know is, why did Thomas Erikson actually write this book? And he actually wrote a book before this book, and it was called Surrounded by Idiots, and it was also a bestseller. And in this book, Surrounded by Idiots, he explains the colors really in depth and gives examples, and it's all about the colors. And then he went to a university and presented his book and the disc model in this classroom at university. This psychopath, after the lecture, came up to Thomas and asked him, okay, but that's really nice what you said, but how can I exploit these different colors? And then Thomas was like, what kind of a question is this? This is ridiculous. Don't ask me these questions. Why would you want to exploit someone? And then the guy proceeded in standing at the door and observing Thomas and looking at him with this psychopathic stare. That is a common thing that psychopaths have. Now, later on, Thomas decided to call up the university again and ask what happened to this guy. So this employee at this specific university created a lot of drama. So he got one employee pregnant and got her fired for sexual harassment. The other employee also got pregnant while she was married and wanted to kill herself. Then he also got the dean of the department fired because of an embezzlement of, I think, what was it, like $1,000 or something? And the psychopath put the blame on the head of the department, and that person got fired. But then he goes and, starts over exploiting everyone somewhere else. So basically, those are psychopaths. This is the motivation that Thomas was like, you know what? It is better to educate people and to help them shield themselves from these psychopaths. There is also a quiz at the beginning of the book, right? Which you can do. And then you can check if you are the psychopath or have psychopathic tendencies. Okay, let's get into it. Real life applications. Now that you understood a little bit of the motivation and what the different colors are, here are actually some examples that Thomas mentions that happened in his surroundings. For the red personality, which is dominant, he takes an example from work. And this has actually also happened. So at work, we all know these people, right? We all have this boss that is super dominant, never takes no for an answer, super strict, and everybody's like a bit afraid of him or her, So how do you get close to a person like this? And he describes the example of how a psychopath gets close to this person by showing their weakness and by excusing themselves. So the psychopath was supposed to do a job and obviously didn't, because they don't like work. They try to blame it on everybody else always, they gaslight a lot. And he didn't manage the project well. And then he confessed to his or her boss and said, look, it didn't work because of this reason and of that reason and of whatever reason and of whatever reason. You need to help me do this project. So basically, dominant people are not used to someone asking them for help. They are used to people being afraid and not opening up to them and really, trying to, do everything according to what they say and never speak back. But if you talk back and if you actually confess, then it makes the dominant person feel human. So obviously, and everybody likes to help, right? If you're not a psychopath, everybody likes to help. So basically, in the end, the psychopath managed to convince his or her boss, the dominant type, to help with the project. And in the end, the boss was managing the project of the psychopath. And because the dominant boss thought that they created a trusting relationship, because obviously the psychopath had confessed that things didn't work out, etc. And in that way, the psychopath got away with everything, got his or her big paycheck, and didn't have to do any work and blamed it on everybody else. Does that ring any bells with you? If it hasn't, then you're lucky and you have not encountered people like this. If it has, then just be careful. Now, for the yellow personality, it is influence. Thomas chose as an example, which is in the private space. This also happened in his circle of friends. And it's such a shame because we all love yellow personalities. They're fun to be around. They're exciting. They always do new things. And it's so much fun. And so he talks about a girl and a guy. The girl is the yellow personality and the guy is a psychopath. So basically, the girl has a lot of friends, as you do as a yellow personality. And the guy just wants to make this yellow person, like his girlfriend, depended on him and cut her off from all her friends, right? So that the psychopath can exploit and have all the attention of his girlfriend, possibly also rely on her with regards to money and make her really dependent on him. So then what he does is he gaslights and he manipulates, meaning that he slowly but surely cuts off and talks bad about all of her friends. So he gets into all the friendships of his girlfriend and then tells her things that they talked smack about her, that, they didn't like this about her, things that are not even true. And then tries to jeopardize the relationships because obviously what do you do as a yellow person? You're like, what? This person gossiped about me? She's supposed to be my friend. Why did she talk smack about me? So they want to call, they want to arrange something and they want to arrange a meeting or just to talk things through, So then the psychopath always comes up with some sort of emergency that this meeting can never take place. And thus forth, this conversation never takes place, in which the yellow person talks to her friend and is like, okay, why do you say that? And the friend is like, I never said that about you. Oh, okay. So he must be the problem, So that conversation never happens. And that's how then the psychopath manages to take the yellow person away from all her friends and make her really dependent on him. So that in the end, she doesn't have any friends, is super insecure about things, and just really clings to everything that the psychopath does until the psychopath has everything that he wants out of her, and then he will just leave and leave you in shambles. Then, does that ring a bell anywhere? We also call it toxic relationships. But guys, just be careful. So I am 36 right now, and in my life, I'm gonna say 4 friends who have told me that they met psychopaths and that this is exactly what happened. And then the psychopath left from one day to the next and just left them in complete shambles. Now coming to the green personality. The green personality, someone who is really nice and cozy at home, stable, very down to earth, very, very peaceful, very reliable, etc. Here, the Thomas talks about an example of how a psychopath exploited with money this type of person. And he also says this has actually happened also in real life. So God bless this woman or anyone who has experienced this. Like I really hope this never happens to anyone. But basically it is like this, that you as a very down to earth kind of person, maybe you don't meet someone that easily, etc. And these psychopaths are usually very outgoing, very charming, very good looking, they have a certain way about them, right? So then you get into a relationship with them, and then at the beginning they may seem very rich because they have rented some nice cars or they have some business deals going on. Apparently, this smells like, if you haven't watched a documentary on Tinder Swindler on Netflix, go watch it, because that's like all psychopath meets a very gullible, person, basically. And then this psychopath starts asking for money because the business deal is not going so well, or, something's happening, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then he or she, they start asking for money. And then they ask for money, and they ask a little bit at the beginning, and then they ask for more, and then they ask for more, and then they ask for more. Because once you have opened the gates and once you've given them something once, they will always ask for more until you are bankrupt, until you have no more money, until your Amex is maxed out, until you've taken on a loan, until your whole 401k is gone. Goodness knows what, right? So this happened. This green poor person really went into so much debt over this one psychopath because they thought they're going to do something really good and they want to support their partner. And then all of a sudden, once the money pit has been exhausted, the psychopath goes up and leaves because they have no emotions. So they just Foxtrot Oscar. Done. And again, I hope you never ever loan money to anyone, except for if you have a really good relationship with them and you are such good friends. And I don't know, it's not even family. You should just be careful with people like this, right? So I'm telling you that now. So hopefully this never happens to you. And then we come to the last example, which is the blue person. And the blue person is very conscientious, right? So they're very focused. They're very, I'm going to call them nerdy, even though nerdy is not a negative connotation. They're very focused. They're very detail-oriented. They have very in-depth knowledge of things. And people like this are usually really good at their jobs. They're usually specialists and they're good at the jobs. And then Thomas proceeds and give an example from work again. And he says that it is a work situation and this person is a blue person. It is a guy and he is one level above the psychopath. And so the psychopath slowly but surely is demounting the blue person's confidence by pointing out things that are wrong, but not even wrong in terms of that the blue person has done something wrong, but the psychopath takes the work, changes some things, and then pins it on the blue person and says, oh, but you did something wrong here and you did something wrong there. And this is like the biggest insecurity of people. It's like doing something wrong or that their numbers are not correct or that everything what they deliver is not correct. So basically, the blue person starts becoming more insecure and the psychopath starts manipulating that person and is like, okay, but now let's have a team meeting, or invites for meetings that then he moves last minute or says, no, they started 15 minutes earlier. Didn't you get the email, etc., and makes an effort to make the blue person look bad in front of everyone. And then the blue person slowly but surely doesn't know what he's talking about. And since he's so isolated, he doesn't talk to anybody else and to confirm what is actually happening. And that is also to the advantage of the psychopath, because the psychopath has so-called pawns. He uses people that he doesn't want anything from to like him, and then him or her, it could also be a woman, him or her, and then uses those pawns and talks bad about one specific person and can spread the gossip and makes people look bad, even though they've done nothing wrong. And so in the end, this poor blue person leaves the job and has burnout. Ta-da! Brilliant. So I also hope this happens to no one. And I really hope, obviously in the book, I've given you all the details now, but obviously in the book, there is just so many more nuances and there's also so much more to understanding what actually a psychopath is. Let's talk about the book. It's written in a really light, a very, very easy way to read, very, very easy. It is, like 250 pages long. You can read this in an afternoon if you want on a Sunday. And I do really, really, really recommend it because it is just so important. So most probably you have some of them at work, or most probably you will encounter them, or most probably if you have a good position, if you have a high power position, or if you are someone cool or someone with money, or just in general, people want something from you, then just be careful. I'm just saying, read the book and just use your brain to protect yourself. That doesn't mean you have to have your guard up against everyone, but just be mindful of it and test the waters and then just develop a good social skills and a good feeling for people through observation. So guys and girls, this would be my recommendation. What I would like to add is also I recently read an article on toxic workplaces. So since COVID-19, we've had a lot of reorganizations, and psychopaths and narcissists, which is also a different version of a psychopath, but a more milder version, they managed to position themselves really quickly in good positions. So since COVID-19, we've had a lot of reorganizations. So basically, in all big companies, you're going to have psychopaths sit in most of the managing positions and in most of the positions that actually have something to say, because they have a lot of pawns, because they do nothing else than just chat to people and they don't actually do any work. So basically, they're positioned everywhere and have their fingers in everywhere and have manipulate everyone so that in the end, they get the most amount of money for doing nothing. So just be aware and also protect yourself. Okay, guys. So read the book or listen to the audiobook or something. Just do it. Mwah. Ciao. See you next time.